Growing up feeling invisible, Madison was constantly pushed aside by the one person who should have loved her unconditionally, her own mother. Told she was nothing but a burden, she was forced to sleep in the cold, dark garage, while her stepbrother received all the love, attention, and approval. For years, Madison endured it. But when her mother, the woman who'd treated her like an outcast, needed her most, Madison made a choice that would change everything. She saved the woman who had torn her apart. But what happened next shattered everything she thought she knew about family, loyalty, and revenge. Because sometimes, the hardest part isn't walking away from the ones who hurt you. It's realizing you've become the person you were always meant to be. Stay tuned to find out how this story unfolds, with unexpected twists, shocking betrayals, and a revelation that will leave you speechless. You won't want to miss it. At just 8 years old, Madison Carter learned what it meant to be invisible in her own home. She wasn't loud. She didn't break things. She didn't scream when she got hurt. But somehow, her silence became her crime. After her father passed away in a tragic accident, her mother, Dana, remarried a man named Rick, a well-groomed, charming insurance broker with a son from a previous marriage. That son, Blake, was the same age as Madison, but treated like royalty from day one. While Blake had a custom-built bunk bed, an iPad, and a birthday party every year with balloon arches and party clowns, Madison's room slowly turned into a storage closet. Eventually, it was taken over by boxes and furniture, and Madison was told she'd now be sleeping in the garage, just until things were settled. Things never settled. By the time Madison turned 12, she had her own cot in the corner of the cold garage, with a single shelf to keep her things, mostly hand-me-downs and dollar store shampoo. Her mom never referred to her by her name, just her, or worse, the girl. She heard her mother at church potlucks and neighborhood block parties whisper to others that Madison was a burden she was stuck with after her husband died. "She's just not like Blake," Dana would say with a fake, sympathetic smile. "She doesn't even try." But Madison did try. Every single day. She did the dishes, mowed the lawn, watched Blake when Dana and Rick went out, and cooked dinner. She brought home straight A's, hoping her report cards would be some kind of currency for love. They never were. The years passed, and the distance between her and her mother only grew. Dana praised Blake for every minor accomplishment. "You ate your broccoli? So brave," while ignoring Madison entirely, even when she won the science fair in 8th grade. The photo of Blake's 4th-place soccer trophy stayed on the fridge for years. Madison's award disappeared within a week. By 16, Madison was working part-time at a local diner to save up for her future. A future she hoped would take her far from the house that treated her like an afterthought. She took on every shift she could, while Blake coasted through life, constantly failing classes and getting bailed out by his parents. One rainy night, Madison came home late after covering a shift for a coworker. She was soaked to the bone, her shoes squishing as she walked. When she entered through the garage, she found her few belongings thrown into trash bags. A note sat on her cot. "You're not welcome here if you can't follow rules. Sleeping in this house is a privilege." She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just changed into dry clothes, put the bags back in the corner, and silently went to sleep. The next morning, Rick barely acknowledged her, but Dana made sure to say, "You'll never be more than a burden. If I didn't have a heart, I'd send you to live in a shelter. Be grateful we haven't." What she didn't know was that Madison had already applied for early college enrollment. At 17, Madison left for a state university with a scholarship. No help from anyone. She packed her bags, didn't say goodbye, and nobody stopped her. It was like her absence made the house lighter. College wasn't easy, but it was freedom. Madison worked 2 jobs, kept her grades up, and slowly began to build a life. By the time she turned 23, she was in medical school, fueled by a dream she had since she was little, to become a doctor. A dream her mother had laughed at. "You," Dana once scoffed, "a doctor? Sweetheart, you'll be lucky if you finish high school without getting pregnant or dropping out." But Madison never forgot, and life has a strange way of coming full circle. It was during her 3rd year in med school that she received an emergency call from the hospital where she was doing her rotations. A middle-aged woman had been brought in, severe liver damage, complications from years of untreated diabetes, and sepsis. The name on the chart: Dana Carter. Madison didn't flinch. The moment Madison saw her mother's name on the hospital chart, her fingers paused over the tablet screen. For a split second, she thought it had to be someone else. But the birthday matched. The hometown matched. And when she turned the corner and glanced through the glass, she recognized her immediately. Older, weaker, her skin pale and sickly, but it was her, Dana Carter. Madison didn't say a word. She turned and walked down the hall to the attending physician. "Patient in room 4B, the doctor said, reviewing her chart. "No advance directive, no listed next of kin. Poor woman came in alone. Complicated case, septic shock. Might not make it through the night if we don't act fast." Madison nodded, her voice steady. "What's the plan?" They worked through the night. Madison never mentioned who Dana was. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't even about closure. It was about doing her job, and she did it well. She inserted IVs, stabilized her vitals, updated charts, and monitored everything. But a storm was brewing inside her. Not anger, not pity, just cold clarity. The next morning, Madison took a break, exhausted but composed. As she walked past the waiting area to grab a coffee, she saw a familiar face sitting nervously in the hallway. Blake, her stepbrother. Still the same smug expression, though age had dulled the boyish charm and replaced it with something greasy and worn out. He stood up. "Hey, you're..." His voice trailed off. He recognized her. Madison didn't smile. "I'm on shift," she said simply. "You're a nurse?" "No," she replied calmly. "I'm a med student. I'm assisting on your mom's case." Blake blinked. "Wait, you work here? Like, you're the one helping her?" Madison didn't answer. She walked past him and he followed. "She needs help. The doctor said she might die," he stammered. "They don't know what to do without a family member. They're waiting for me to sign something, but I don't know what to do." He looked genuinely panicked. For the first time, he wasn't the golden child. He was lost. Later that evening, Dana regained consciousness. Barely. Her eyes fluttered open, and she was surrounded by machines. She winced in pain and tried to speak. Madison was there, standing by her side, checking her vitals. She looked down at her mother, the woman who made her sleep on a concrete floor for nearly a decade. Dana squinted. "You..." she croaked. "Madison?" Madison didn't smile. "You're in the hospital. Sepsis, liver failure. You'll be here for a while." Dana blinked slowly, confused and scared. "You work here?" "Yes." "You're the nurse?" "No," she said, her tone flat. "I'm your medical student, on rotation, helping keep you alive." Dana's eyes welled up. I didn't know you'd become something." Madison's expression didn't change. "You never asked." In the following days, Dana's condition worsened. She needed a partial liver transplant. The only viable option was a living donor. Blake had been tested, incompatible. No other relatives came forward. A board of doctors met to discuss options. And then, one of them turned to Madison. "She has no one else. You're the only match. Your family. Should we proceed if you're willing?" The room went silent. Blake waited in the hallway, pacing. He looked at Madison as she stepped out. "They said you're the only one who can help," he said, voice cracking. "You'll do it, right? You have to." Madison tilted her head. "She made me sleep in the garage, Blake. Remember that?" He swallowed hard. "She was going through a lot back then. She didn't mean it. She told people I was a mistake, a burden. I mean, yeah, but she's our mom." Madison stared at him. "She's your mom," she said. He blinked. "So, you're not gonna help her?" "I didn't say that." Madison walked back inside. She looked down at Dana, hooked to tubes and wires, eyes full of fear. "Do you want to live?" Madison asked her. Dana nodded faintly. "You need a piece of my liver," Madison said. Dana's lip trembled. "Will you give it?" Madison took a breath. "That depends. First, I want you to say it." "Say what?" "I want you to admit it," Madison said. "Admit you failed me. Admit you treated me like garbage while spoiling your son. Admit I was never a burden. You were just too selfish to see value in me." Dana closed her eyes, tears falling sideways across her cheeks. I'm sorry, she whispered. I was wrong. Madison stood still. Then she turned and walked out without answering. That night, the hospital staff received a signed consent form. Madison had agreed to the procedure, but her conditions were listed in a sealed envelope, private. 2 days later, the surgery was scheduled. The operating room was quiet, except for the soft hum of machines and the muted voices of the surgical team. Madison lay on one table, her mother on another, separated by a curtain, close enough to save her, far enough to remain strangers. She hadn't spoken to Dana again after that night. She had done her part. The rest wasn't her responsibility anymore. The surgery lasted 7 hours. Complicated, tense, but ultimately successful. Both patients survived. Madison recovered quickly, stronger than the surgeons had expected, but Dana's recovery was slower. Weaker body, weaker spirit. When Dana was moved into recovery, she kept asking for Madison. Not Blake, not a friend, just Madison. But Madison didn't visit her. Instead, she went back to her dorm and returned to classes the next week as if nothing had happened. No one at school even knew what she'd been through. She didn't need the praise. She didn't need validation. All she felt was empty. Saving Dana hadn't brought her peace, only a quiet numbness. Then one evening, a letter arrived at the nurse's station. No name on the front, just for Madison. Inside was a single piece of paper with a handwritten note. I don't deserve your kindness. I don't know how to live with what I did, but thank you for giving me the chance to try. No signature, just her mother's handwriting. Madison didn't keep the letter. Weeks passed. Life returned to routine. Then one morning, she walked into the ER and found a crowd gathering around a young woman screaming at the front desk. "She said she was my friend," the woman cried. "But she left me in that alley to OD alone. Please, she's all I have." Madison stepped forward to de-escalate, but the name the woman kept yelling froze her in place. "Taylor. Her name is Taylor Carter. She's my roommate." Taylor, the girl Blake used to date. Dana's niece, Madison's cousin. Madison hadn't heard that name in years. Curious, she followed the case. Taylor had been admitted after a near-fatal overdose. She survived, but barely. When she woke up, the story she told shocked the entire staff. She had been manipulated, used, and then abandoned by someone close. Someone who had promised to take care of everything. That someone was Blake. Taylor told the attending psychiatrist that Blake had convinced her to invest in his startup, a shady crypto scheme that burned through every dollar she had. When she lost everything, including her apartment, he ghosted her. The night she overdosed, he hadn't even called 911. A stranger found her. Madison felt the ground shift beneath her. The golden child had finally shown his true colors. She pulled up Blake's file. He had been listed as Dana's emergency contact. Curious, she checked into recent financial records connected to Dana's care. And there it was. Blake had tried to use Dana's insurance, and even attempted to access her personal savings to pay off his gambling debts. But when the banks flagged it, he backed off. He hadn't visited his mother since the day of the surgery. Madison printed the documents and took them to the hospital ethics board. They began an investigation immediately. Within 2 weeks, Blake was banned from the facility. Dana was never told why. But when she stopped receiving calls from her son, her spirit finally broke. Dana requested to see Madison. Again and again. Madison refused. But one day, on a rainy Thursday, she was paged for an urgent consult. She walked into the room and saw her mother sitting in a chair, frail and trembling, with an envelope in her lap. "I wrote you something," Dana said, voice cracking. "I didn't come for that," Madison replied, setting down her clipboard. "I'm here because you requested hospice planning." Dana's eyes widened. "Hospice?" "The damage to your liver was worse than expected," Madison said calmly. "There are complications. You may not make it past the year." Dana began to cry. "But I thought we were okay." "You thought saving your life would fix everything?" Madison asked. "That's not how this works." Dana held out the envelope with shaky hands. "Just, please take it." Madison took the envelope but didn't open it. On her way out, she dropped it into the biohazard bin. She never read the letter, but she did do one last thing before leaving that floor. She called Adult Protective Services. Told them about Dana's financial state, about the manipulation, about Blake's actions. Told them Dana had no one now, no money, no home, no family left to care for her, just the hospital. And that's when they asked the question, "Are you her next of kin? Should we transfer her to assisted care?" The doctor in charge looked at Madison and asked quietly, "She'll need someone to make those decisions. What do you want to do?" Madison didn't blink. She looked him in the eye and said, "Discharge her as indigent. Let the state handle it." And just like that, the golden sun was gone. The spoiled lies erased, and the burden, she was never one. Madison walked out into the night air, free for the first time in years, not because she got even, but because she let go. Weeks passed. Spring bloomed. Madison started sleeping better, eating better, even laughing again. Real laughter, not the nervous kind she used to force. She wasn't sure when the weight had lifted. It didn't happen overnight, but one morning, she woke up and realized she wasn't carrying it anymore. Her mother was gone, not dead, but irrelevant, and that was enough. But peace, as always, didn't last. A knock came on her apartment door just before midnight. She opened it, expecting a neighbor, maybe someone locked out, but instead she found herself staring at a girl no older than 16. Dirty hoodie, cracked phone in her hand, and eyes wide with fear. "You don't know me," the girl said, "but I think we're family." Madison stepped outside, heart pounding. "Who sent you?" The girl hesitated. "I was in a shelter. They had my file. They said my father was Blake Carter." Madison felt her breath catch. "And your mom?" she asked, voice hoarse. The girl looked down. "Taylor. She died last week. No one claimed me, but there was a note in her things. It said, 'If anything ever happens to me, find Madison. She'll understand.'" It hit Madison like a freight train. Taylor had kept her promise, even after everything. And now, here was the consequence. The child Blake abandoned, the one he never acknowledged. Madison let the girl in, gave her food, a blanket, a place to sleep, and all night she sat on the couch, staring at the dark ceiling, wondering if this was fate or some cruel joke. In the morning, she contacted social services. She wasn't ready to take on custody. She wasn't even sure she believed in motherhood anymore. But she wasn't going to let the girl vanish into the system. She offered temporary guardianship, classes, therapy, the support no one ever gave her. And slowly, the girl, whose name was Ivy, started to smile again. Eat, trust. And Madison, despite herself, started to feel something she never thought she could: hope. But then another storm came. Blake resurfaced. He'd been arrested for fraud in another state, bailed out by an unknown investor, and now claimed to be turning over a new leaf. His comeback? A podcast. One where he twisted every detail of his life to make himself the misunderstood genius. He even mentioned Madison, not by name, but by insult. "She was always jealous," he said in one clip. "My stepsister. Could never stand that I was the favorite. She always wanted the spotlight." The podcast went viral, and suddenly, Madison was getting harassed online. People posted screenshots of old family photos. Someone even found her medical residency profile and left comments calling her a fraud, an attention seeker, a liar. But the worst blow came a week later. A formal request filed by Blake to gain full custody of Ivy. He claimed she was his biological daughter, that Madison was mentally unstable, and that he was now clean and employed. Madison had 2 days to respond. She gathered every file, every report, every detail of what Blake had done. To Taylor, to Dana, to her. She submitted it all to the court. But when the judge reviewed the paperwork, he paused. "There's one thing missing," he said. "Do you want custody?" Madison blinked. I didn't think I had a choice." "You do," the judge replied. "You can let the state handle this, or you can step in." That night, she went home to Ivy and found her asleep on the couch with one of Madison's old medical books on her lap. When she opened the book, a post-it note fell out. In Ivy's handwriting, "You're the first person who ever looked at me like I mattered." The next morning, Madison filed for full legal guardianship. In court, Blake tried to make a scene, yelling, accusing, even crying fake tears. But the judge saw through it all. The final order was swift. Blake was denied custody. His parental rights were stripped. Ivy was placed permanently with Madison. It didn't feel like revenge. It felt like correction. Months later, on Ivy's birthday, they visited Taylor's grave. Madison didn't say much, just placed a single white rose and whispered, "She's okay now, I promise." As they walked away, Ivy grabbed Madison's hand. "You think my mom would have liked you?" Madison smiled through the tears. "She already did." And just like that, the cycle broke. Not with fire, not with fury, but with love, rebuilt in silence, one shattered piece at a time. If this story moved you even a little, imagine how many others it might touch. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more powerful, emotional stories that stay with you long after the screen fades to black.